Thank you all so much for tuning in to this episode of Connect. I'm geeking out about it because I've got Alex Vayner sitting right next to me.
Hi, Titania.
Hi. Thank you so much for being here.
Thank you for having me.
And you're currently at Capgemini.
Right.
And tell us about what you're doing there.
So maybe just even a few words about the company. It could be one of the largest consulting companies that some of the viewers may not have heard of.
Yes.
So Capgemini is a technology services and digital transformation consultancy. It's 200,000 people throughout the world.
Wow.
About 13 billion euros in year revenue. So quite a large firm, working across all industries, supporting mostly Fortune 500 clients. We're based out of Paris, so a much stronger brand in Europe, but a pretty significant operation in North America as well. So, and so obviously because data and data science has been a big part of sort of the corporate transformation conversation, data and data science is a big part of our offerings to clients at Capgemini. And so for the last almost 3 years now, I've built the data science and AI practice within the North America part of Capgemini.
That's huge. How long have you been working on that?
So I've been in the data science field pretty much my whole life. I went to grad school here at Georgia Tech, so
Yay!
Go Jackets.
Kept it local.
Yeah, and that's how I ended up in Atlanta. So I've been sort of a mathematician turned data scientist, machine learning SME since then, but the term AI and machine learning weren't really buzzwords when I was starting my career.
No.
So I started as what we call modeler, so I was writing mathematical and financial models in consulting companies for hedge funds, and slowly transitioned from being a coder and a modeler to being someone who helps companies acquire, structure, and exploit their data assets. And in the last few roles have now been focused on building high-performance data science teams and capabilities and functions. So that's the journey. But at heart, I'm a math geek. So which probably is by itself an accident because I came to America from the former Soviet Union, and there I was part of an advanced math school. And then sort of ending up here, I found out all of a sudden I'm a couple of years more advanced than my peers in mathematics, and it just kind of roller coasted from there, right? And so I feel like I'm actually a humanities person at heart, and probably would have been maybe a historian, maybe an anthropologist in another life, but sort of through maybe divine providence of sorts, just ended up being a mathematician, and I enjoy it. So I'm enjoying the journey so far.
That's fascinating. That's really, really cool. In terms of just defining data science and artificial intelligence, you mentioned it might be good to give people an overview if they constantly hear that word yet don't quite understand it. So can you define it for, let's say, the people who are watching that are like, yeah, could you please do that for us?
Sure. Yeah. There's a lot of like you said, I think buzz and noise around AI, and so I think there's a quote. I think it's from Dan Ariely, who's a very famous behavioral economist, that says that data science and AI is like teenage sex. Everyone's talking about it. Nobody knows what they're doing, and everyone else thinks that they're doing it better. So so this is what we get in the field. Jokes aside, I guess at the core, AI is really computers mimicking and enhancing human behaviors. And oftentimes that's, fundamentals like sight and hearing, right? Human senses. Well, for those things, now we have speech-to-text recognition, right? We have natural language processing. For sight, we have computer vision algorithms, right? And then all of that data and information needs to be interpreted, and that's where machine learning and deep learning comes in. So at the end of the day, it's all of those techniques under the umbrella that basically often encompasses everything from robotic process automation to neural networks. But really, it's really just computers mimicking human behavior and enhancing it. So That's what we talk to clients about is, how do you then use those techniques to understand more about your business, your customers, to get insights, and then, the biggest conversation I have with customers is about how do you drive an insight-driven transformation within your company? How do you make sure that managers make decisions based on data and not on their gut? How do you make sure that processes are automated? How do you make sure that KPIs are readily available and become part of sort of the lingua franca of the conversation at the executive level?
I love that. It's not only mimicking human behavior, but enhancing it. That's a key takeaway. That's a tweet. We will tweet that as we link to this when we share it on social. This is very close to home for me. My company, Bark, we're using artificial intelligence and machine learning algorithms and contextual analysis to keep children safer online. Before I came in here, there were 3 schools in DeKalb County that were actually on lockdown because of a bomb threat. And so when you can use data science and AI to really help the human race, it's incredibly impactful, and it speaks to the humanities side of you. And I don't think you should let that part go. Like, I think you can proceed down those paths concurrently.
I'm working on it. Every time I grab a book, there is a cognitive dissonance between, do I go for the latest, computational techniques, or do I grab, Chekhov or Nabokov or Dickens and just relax?
Yeah.
So, but I do enjoy, like you said, that I get to touch different aspects of the human experience, if you will, by working with companies. And you see data science and AI actually being leveraged from companies like consumer goods companies that are clients, to manufacturing, to financial services, and now there's a huge movement of these startups. There are literally thousands of startups in machine learning and AI, and they're developing very niche products focused on very, very specific business problems. So it's been a if nothing else, it's been a fun journey to be on, and so much opportunity to learn.
So what does your day-to-day look like in your position?
So I think it's changing now, because I took a new global leadership role around helping the group, the Gemini Consulting Company, globally roll out go-to-market and AI solutions. But in my first job, so to speak, in the first 3 years, it's been building the data science and AI practice for North America. And so what that means is, first and foremost, it's managing people. So sort of the aspects of people management that you think of are, acquiring talent, recruiting, which is a big part of the conversation, setting them up for success,
Right.
Setting expectations for them, helping them sort of understand the journey in their career growth. Third is coaching them, and then fourth is really mentoring them on a broader career perspective, right? So I always think of the people in the practice as basically they're part of an extended family. It's not really your nuclear family in the traditional sense, but it's someone who's going to be in your life, for hopefully for a while, and really working with them and mentoring them. So I think of people management in almost a reverse order. I work for the team, not that the team works for me. So that's very rewarding. So that's a big part of what I've been doing. And then of course it's building solutions. And probably the third aspect is business development. So helping the firm bring our solutions to the marketplace, and helping clients walk through the conversation around how do they start their insight-driven transformation. Because it's a journey, that starts from some of the buzzwords that are around sort of the descriptive analytics and diagnostic analytics around understanding what has your business been doing so far up to date, towards predictive analytics and prescriptive analytics, which is what is happening tomorrow, what should you do about what's happening tomorrow. And now we're in this cognitive AI revolution, which is the sort of the unknown, right? Sort of the previous steps were all about sort of the known or the known unknown, and this is the and I might get lost in the lingo here, but the unknown is really unknown. You can't say what it is because then it would be a known unknown. So if you're following all of that, that's where cognitive comes in. That's where machine learning comes in, right? That's where self-learning algorithms that are driving the machine learning revolution, helping you sort of derive insights that you didn't know exist, ask questions that you didn't ask before. And that's what's really exciting about this next transformation. And it's fun to talk to companies about how do they start their journey. Should they be just collecting data? Should they be, can they start with insights and future-looking trends, and before they do BI, is that even possible, or do you have to go through a sequence? So those are all discussions that we're having with clients every day.
Oh man, that's amazing. I love something that you said, and it echoes servant leadership. It's the team doesn't work for me, I work for the team. And that is very, very important to keep in mind when you get to a level of senior leadership that can really help your team go the extra mile and perform at a level that is beyond your competitors.
And it's almost like you don't really have a choice today as a leader to not do that, because especially in this field, because one of the consequences of this being such a hot area is that companies often declare Napoleonic ambitions around data science, right? And they say, well, we're going to do the cutting edge stuff, right? And the way that shows up for candidates and for employees, right, is like, well, I'm here at company A, I'm kind of doing some cool stuff, but this recruiter just called me and company B is doing really awesome stuff. That's why I went to grad school for 2 years or 5 years, right? And they'll pay me, 15% more. So why don't I go and do that, right? And so there's this notion of the grass is greener. So how do you create experiences for your team so that they don't jump ship at the first opportunity that comes? And sometimes you do want to move, and sometimes you are ready to take the next step. Maybe you're taking more of a management position. Maybe you want to learn a different industry. Maybe you want to go from consulting, which has a lot of pros and some cons, to a corporate role. So there are lots of reasons to switch roles and to switch jobs. But for me, the imperative is how do you create an authentic, engaging experience where people can grow and develop, without leaving the firm.
That's key. I wanted to ask you about some things that you've learned in the course of your career. What are some key takeaways, whether it's high highs, low lows, anything in between? You have some wisdom, and I'd love for you to impart it.
Sure, thanks for the question. Maybe putting various hats on. So if I'm putting on my the candidate hat, right? I think a couple of things that come to mind is, to the point we were discussing earlier about sort of a lot of hype around data science. But in this field, I would say, do your due diligence. If you're in the middle of your career and you're focused on learning and growing, basically ask hard questions during interviews when you're talking to prospective employers. Absolutely. To understand, well, they say, well, we are doing cutting edge data science. Well, what kind of tools are you using? What kind of technologies? Well, are you, we're industrializing solutions. Well, what language are you using? So there are some technical distinctions around programming languages that are used for industrialized solutions that can actually execute at scale versus languages that are more for experimentation. So nuances like this can give you insight into how much is hype and how much is real. Another point is, if you're still in high school and college and you're exploring, I would say for me the big dimension of this is the fundamental skills are very hard to acquire later on in your career. So take the harder math, computer science, statistics classes There's a saying out there, you can't coach height. It's very hard, even though there's now a plethora of courses online and through open courseworks through MIT, Stanford libraries, Khan Academy. If you don't know the fundamentals, it's going to be very hard to follow the more advanced machine learning, data science curricula. So that's advice to high school, college kids. Study the math, computer science fundamentals, because that's actually going to help you more easily pick up new tools, techniques, and methodologies later on in your career. Because in this field, you have to be a lifelong learner. There's no other way. So setting up for success is important, and getting the fundamentals, the basics are important. If you are a company, I would say, my suggestion would be this, experimentation. Before you declare huge ambitions and invest millions of dollars and years into building something, do frequent experimentations. If you're in the IT part of the organization, reach out to the business partners early. Where we see a lot of efforts go into what I call sort of this POC graveyard for data science is either the team building the solution didn't partner with the business stakeholders from the early stages, and so it doesn't have a landing pad. Or they had the business support, but they actually didn't talk to IT, so now they have a cool solution and they have champions in the business, but they can't industrialize it because they don't understand how do the systems work, how do you embed the solution into existing architecture. So if you want to avoid this sort of POC graveyard, partnering with IT and the business and bringing those two teams together is really critical, and that's what Capgemini does a lot. We come in and we say, okay, business, IT, sometimes you guys have tension, and that tension is natural,
right?
And it will always exist, right? Because that's how sort of you create something great and something new. And so we help bridge the gap and help create partnerships that drive effective solutions from the early proof of concept stages to industrializing a solution that's actually going to drive revenue for the company and maybe even transform and create new business lines and new revenue streams, new business models for companies. So that's that's probably advice for companies. I would say also if you're a company, being aware of this trend. I think that there's a huge trend right now around the collapse of the service and product industries. So, and we are experiencing it ourselves as a service company at Capgemini, but the trend is basically product companies are great because they have high margin and they have ultimately scalable entity, right? You develop take something as simple as Microsoft Word, right? So you develop one version, the world uses it, and you just keep collecting revenue. And the margins for product companies like Microsoft are enormous.
Right.
The challenge is that when you get into more bespoke solutions, companies want something that's configured to them, right? And so the product companies are struggling with realizing, how do I create something which can scale, have high margin, but at the same time be something that's somewhat customized for the customers. And on the opposite end, you have service companies that build things from scratch, and then customers saying, well, why am I paying so much for these solutions and for you to do over and over again from the ground up, something that you could have built internally and then plugged in. So what companies are doing, for example, Capgemini is building these applications or solutions that allow you to say, well, we have a general solution, but we're not going to just sell you a generic solution like a product company. We're going to customize it, but we're not going to do it from the ground. We're going to actually enhance an existing solution, fit it to your business, to your technology. So I think that's a big trend that's taking place in the industry, and you're going to see service companies moving into the product space a little bit, and then product companies trying to move into the service space a little bit. And and I think that even the notion of product and service, and you see this in this software as a service, discipline that's emerged in the last decade. I think that's going to expand, and I think the notion of product and service is going to collapse.
Wow. So it's interesting because I asked you what you've learned, and my next question was going to be, what are you excited about? And you kind of wove those two together, which is great. Is there anything that you didn't touch on? Queuing up my next question of, you have such unique insights and on a global scale. What are you seeing and what are you excited about for the future?
So a couple of other things I've been thinking about. One is, we talked about the impact of this on the candidates and folks who are data scientists who are learning the field and growing in it. And we talked about companies. So another party that's in the conversation that sometimes is not in the front are academic institutions that are also trying to figure out what to do in this space. So it was an article in the journal, I think maybe a month ago, that at Berkeley, I think, the data science class is the largest undergraduate class in the history of the university.
Wow.
And there were something like ridiculous number of like 1,200 students in this massive class. So I think this demand in the marketplace, especially in Silicon Valley and in California, is generating such a high need for talent that the universities now are trying to figure out, like, where are they in this conversation? They're creating programs. So right here in Atlanta, so I'm on the board of Kennesaw State University's program in statistics, and they have one of the first PhD programs in data science, right? So if you think about now, there's a PhD program in data science. Who would have thought about it? And if you think about it, sort of dialing back, 80 years ago, there was no computer science, right? There was just math, and mathematicians wrote programs, and computer science came to be a field, through contributions of mathematicians like Turing and von Neumann, right? And then it became, well, now there are PhD programs in every research institution in the world. There is a PhD program in computer science. So I can see that trend taking place in data science, right? As the field expands, there's going to be actual branches of data science that are going to be created. Some more involved with data engineering, some more involved with pure machine learning, and there's going to be enough there to actually constitute its own discipline with its own, comprehensive exams and its own research fields, its own publications and conferences. So that's something I'm excited about, because I've been participating in data science conferences from a business side, but now I'm excited about being part of this program and actually designing curriculum for schools that will basically form the data scientists of the future. So that's really neat, and I'm privileged to be part of that conversation.
Yeah, you're impacting so many lives.
So that's exciting. I think for you mentioned globalization earlier, I think, and I think that's a huge trend. Also, one of the things that's exciting for me being part of a global company is I get to help companies who themselves are global entities now. So we had a project for one of the largest tire manufacturers out there, and it was very much in the trend of product to service migration, right? They make tires are commodities, so they can get outsold by China, and it becomes a price war. So we were helping them develop data science solution around servicing. Like, how do you predict when a tire will go out? How do you extend the life of a tire? And the neat thing about this project was that it was a European company, but it had operations that were significant in Australia, in Canada, in South America, and we were working on this project with the European team, the South American operations. I had teams in India doing some of the data science work, teams in the US. So we're talking about a single project where we have people from 3 continents and half a dozen countries. So it doesn't get, it was hard because you had to be on different time zones, having some of these meetings, but it doesn't get more exciting than, in terms of diversity of experience, in terms of sort of the accents, if you will, that you hear on a call, and actually meeting with these people and a lot of sort of cultural nuances that you pick up. So very exciting, and I think this trend is only going to amplify. in the future. So I think companies now are becoming global players because their customers are global. So that's probably another trend that's exciting to watch for. And I think maybe a last one to touch on that's also been really neat is, I call it the consumer focus. So what it means is, most of our companies that we deal with are B2B companies. And the big trend that I've noticed over the last maybe half a decade for sure is, just like every company now declares that they are a technology company, right? Like every company, you can make coffee or you can make steel, but they're all technology companies because that's the differentiator. I think all companies are becoming basically B2C companies. So an example of that is GE Healthcare. So they make devices for hospitals. So you would think their customers are hospitals,
right,
and their mission statement should be improve hospital operational effectiveness or margins or growth. But their motto is improve patient outcomes, right? It's all about the consumer, right? So there's this transformation of, even though my customer is a business, I'm thinking about my customer's customer or my customer's customer's customer, who inevitably is the consumer, because at the end of the day, somebody is buying something, and that's what drives the economy. And companies have now shifted this mentality towards thinking about, the consumer is who is going to interact with some kind of content, with experience, with behaviors. And if I want to capture my customer, I need to capture all the way downstream to the consumer. So that's been interesting to watch, and I'm excited about it because social media now is amplifying everything, right? So, if there is a breakdown in your operations, everyone knows about it.
Yes.
If there is an angry flight attendant who does something that's not good with a passenger, everyone's going to hear about it. So everything is under magnifying glass, and the consumer focus is fascinating to watch.
Absolutely. These are great insights. Alex Vayner, we are so thankful that you were able to come here and spend some time with us and share your story and your insights. What's the best way for people to connect with you? Do you like to have LinkedIn requests, or just have people Google you, or?
So LinkedIn is probably the social media platform that I use the most.
Okay.
You can find me on LinkedIn just under Alex Vayner, and Capgemini also has a bunch of blogs that you could follow. I have a blog on Capgemini's site as well.
Great.
So look forward to being connected to everyone.
Great. Well, we'll link to all of that below. Alex, thank you so much.
Thank you, Tanya.